Hello, and welcome to
What is the writing professor writing?
Hello, creative writing students. This is your professor here. I thought I would do something today if you're interested. When I was in writing classes in college, I was always very curious, like, what is my writing professor writing? And so I thought I would check in today and show you some of the stuff I'm working on. Now, this isn't ready to put into the world yet. This is in progress. It means it might change drastically. As a writer, you need that space to write bad things without judgment. You need to be able to have the freedom to put anything on the page. And I do, by the way, when I'm writing, I'll put anything on the page because it's mine and I can delete it if I want. And sometimes you have to be a bad writer before you can be a good writer. So anyway, this is a vulnerable exercise. However, I'm asking you to do the same for me. I'm asking you to give me your works in progress. Okay, the first thing I thought I'd show you that I'm writing is a stage play. I have this fascination with plays that take place backstage. And this is one that I'm writing. It's a murder mystery where these people hear people in the audience discussing a murder plot, and then as the play progresses and they come off stage, it's discussing how to foil this murder plot. So as you can see, I have the cast of characters there. I have the setting. These are all things you'll be asked to do later. And I sort of tell at the beginning what's going on, and then I jump right into one of the characters saying something. You'll notice I don't know what she's saying yet because that's the nature of writing. Like, I have a general idea that there's going to be a murder plot. I think one of the cast members is going to be in on it, but she's also going to double cross the murderers. It's going to be funny. It's going to be what we call slapstick, and all of the people in it are people I know, and I'll just change their names and the name of the theater before I finalize it. Just to keep it less messy. Sometimes people don't like their real names being used in things and all that. So, for some reason, that appeals to me as a writer. It feels more real to me if I go ahead and use their names that I know. I don't know why that is. Brain is weird, but I just go with it. This next one is a weird little story. I'm not sure exactly where it's going, but it's magic realism. So I think maybe it might involve time travel, or it might involve dimension hopping. I don't know. Now, that could stray over into sci-fi, but again, I don't care to stick to a genre for my own writing. Whatever it ends up being, that's what it is. But I sort of was inspired by books from the mid-20th century, where often a character would come in and I'd start talking to some other characters, and then he would tell a story. And that's the kind of thing I'm going for here. So the first part of this is this dude saying, "Hey, I've got to tell you the story," and then he tells them the story, which becomes the story I'm writing. Now, I wanted to show you a certain thing about this, which I encourage you to do. All of that right there, all that yellow, are my personal notes. So, I started writing that story with those first words. They may have changed since then, but I like to just dive in. Like this story, I didn't know where it was going. I just started with a sentence and a general feel of a type of story. And I just was like, let's just dive in, right? So I did and started writing it. And then later, as I'm laying around or walking or preparing for class, who knows what, I have these ideas for things I want to include in the story. So I start dumping notes at the beginning or the end of what I'm working on. And then I color them in yellow or red sometimes or whatever to let me know, hey, these are notes. And that way I can work those things in later. So I recommend notes to yourself and just be straightforward to yourself. Like, look at this one here. This is another story I'm writing. It's called An Allotment of Inches. I'm very excited about this story because it involves Lexington. It's historical fiction. I also might be writing about this for Kentucky Monthly Magazine. For them, I would be writing about it from a nonfiction perspective, just talking about what happened with this graveyard in the 1800s. It's quite a doozy of a story. And so Kentucky Monthly wants me to write about it as history, but this story kept popping up in my head, involving some people I know in real life and an imagined character named Copacetic. And I was like, I got to write this. So I'm like 30, 40 pages into this, and I'm on the second half, and I'm very excited about it. This historical story told in a fictional setting where this that's kind of about human relationships, and the story gets really weird, and they go underground in Lexington below the streets, and it's a fun little story that I'm having a great time writing. If you get stalled on your writing, let me give you some hope. I wrote 20 pages of this and then stalled on it for months and months and months and months. So I got stuck. They were in this place where they would go into the underground, and then I couldn't envision them. How do they go? Is there a staircase? Is there what is it like? I have to crawl down a tunnel. And then to picture them down there looking around, like the main character going, "Wow, I'm underground." It's like it just froze me up. It sounded terrible to me. And then recently, I don't know why the brain works the way it does. I was like, it just kept popping up in my head. So what I did, just started going at it. I was like, okay, I'm going to write some stuff for the second half. Screw it. I mean, I don't know how I'm going to transition from the first half to the second half. So what I did is started where it says copacetic there, but then notice I gave myself a note here explaining what this is, and I even named it up here so that I wouldn't get too confused. Now watch. So I took that. Now I put it in the main story, the main text of what I'm writing. Now I changed it. It's not exactly the same as it was in my notes. If you want to go back, rewind, you can see that. But it doesn't have to be. Writing changes as you go. It doesn't bother me at all. But what I did is freed myself from being stuck by skipping it. That as a writer, I go, you're a failure, Leaf. You're stuck. You had this great story. Oh, it's great. It's got all these great characters and situations, and now you're twiddling your thumbs, and you lost it. It fizzled. That's the way I start feeling. I tell you that in case maybe that's the way you end up feeling when you write sometimes. And so I work to overcome that stuff by saying, you know what? I'm just going to jump in the second half. If I'm never connected, what have I lost, really? Some time, maybe? So anyway, I did it. And let me tell you, it kick-started the story. Once I quit worrying about it so much, I moved on from it, didn't make it that big of a deal, and it took all the pressure off. And then I was like, oh, well, clearly this is what happens. And so I just went back and wrote it. It may change before I'm done, but that's okay. The point is, I got unstuck by just going around the thing that had me stuck and thinking I can always come back to it later. And I did. And so now I can move this to the trash just to keep my files organized so I don't get confused, because I incorporated everything I wanted from here into the main document so I can trash it and move on with my life. Okay, now here's where I wanted to show you some of my note-taking while I'm writing. You notice so I have this part where the out there character, he rides the bus a lot, and he just rattles off the bus information. And this is the narrator of the story is kind of based on me, and it's very much like me in that I find buses very confusing. I admit that to you. I have 3 college degrees, y'all. I cannot seem to understand bus schedules and train schedules. So that's real. So I have this character, copacetic, the out there character, rattle off this bus information.
Okay, you can take the V or the F and switch for the N at Broadway and Lafayette. Or you can go over the bridge to DeKalb and catch the Q to Atlantic Avenue and then switch to the IRT, 2, 3, 4, or 5.
And I don't know how to write that. You can see I put bus people talk about lines and stops and quirks. So what I'm going to do is eventually talk to somebody who's one of those bus people, maybe it's one of you, who can rattle off bus lines like that, and then I'll just get them to tell me something to put in there. But the reason I'm pointing that out to you is because I could have stopped right there and gone and spent an hour trying to figure out how to write what I wanted to write there. But instead of wasting that time knowing it was going to be difficult for me, it would pull me out of the creative feel I had going on, I just put a little note in there for myself. You can do that with words too. You can't think of a word. The other day I wrote the word unlikely. Now that's not a word. It could be grammatically a word, but it's not a standard word. But I was like, you know what? I want a word that means words in the manner of being unlikely. But I'll just find it later. I just like, you know what? It's pesky right now. I don't want to deal with it. So I just wrote unlikely. Why not? I highlighted it, so I'd be sure to go back and fix it. But why not, right? What's the idea? The idea is write. And if I can do that, if I'm in a writing place, I'll push everything else out of the way that I can to do that writing. This has been fun. Reach out to me if you want. Let me know what you're working on. Also, ask any questions about anything or comment on anything I said in this video. I would love to hear from you. Meanwhile, happy writing.